Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation, where we shine a light on loss and grief and how it impacts our lives. We are here to provide hope, resources, and a community so no one feels alone in their grief. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Power of Love show, sponsored by the D.D. Jackson Foundation. We are here to shine light on... I messed it up. We are here to provide hope, resources, and a community so no one feels alone in their grief. We believe that through the power of love, that nothing is possible with love on your side. I am T.J. Jackson, and with me is my eldest brother, Taj Jackson.
What's going on, T?
Nothing much. Taj, what are we shining light on? Loss and grief.
We shine light on loss and grief, right?
What's up then? I don't know what I was talking about. Anyways, today's date is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. And it's been a hectic, busy day for myself, but it's been a great day. Taj, how has your day been going?
Everything so far. I mean, another sleepless night with Toria.
With
basically.
the babies, right? I love it. For those of you who are new to our show, this is a show called The Power of Love Show. It is sponsored by, of course, the foundation we started for our mother, the D.D. Jackson Foundation, in memory of her. The whole purpose of this show, as well as the whole foundation, is to just provide some support to you guys, just to provide some education, some insight, some stories, anything to help you get through the situation you are going through. We are live, of course, on Facebook and YouTube. So if you are watching us on Facebook and YouTube live, you can comment. We see the comments. We like the shows to be interactive. We like to get your guys's feedback. We like to hear from you.
Input.
Your input. Thank you, Taj. But you also, for those who don't know, you also could be listening to us on a podcast. Not live, but on a re-listen. So if you are into podcasts, whether it's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, make sure to check us out there. Obviously, sometimes for many of you guys, it's easier to listen to podcasts. So if life is hectic or you're starting a new fitness regimen and you are going on walks, check us out there. It could be another way to consume our content and to uplift yourselves and to educate yourself on different ways to deal with loss and grief. With that all said, Taj, we need to go to the disclaimer before we get too far along. And that disclaimer is one that hasn't changed in a while. I think since we started, so I should know it by heart, but I think I do. But just to play it safe, I'm going to read it because it's an important disclaimer. And that is that we are not licensed therapists. We are just ordinary people who've experienced loss in our lives. We've been impacted by it, and we have learned from it. And we want to share our opinions in an attempt to help you get through whatever it is you are going through. Saying that if you need professional help, we urge you to seek it and to find it. Please do not just rely on us. Now, one more thing I want to say is for those of you guys who are on Instagram, make sure to follow us at DD Jackson Foundation. That is spelled out at DEEDEEJACKSON FOUNDATION, which is foundation. So it's the words DD Jackson Foundation, and each of those D's have two E's. We should also share our website. It's www.ddjf.org. Again, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization with no paid volunteers. It's 100% volunteers, and we are all here because it's our passion to help people get through, the most difficult times in their lives. And we believe in the power of love, and we feel that love is a crucial element of that. Okay, Taj, we have a wonderful show lined up for today, but before we bring our guests in, I'd love to find out what is going on for you, or what was the last week? Any new news? Talk to me. Give me something about your life.
Gosh, I don't know, T. Just a lot's been going on, not in terms of with me in general, just with the world. And I think that's kind of affected me in a way. So I'm kind of in a funk that I didn't anticipate. It always happens, though, when something world recently happens and it's affecting a lot of people. A lot of people are suffering. Somehow it changes my mood. I'm luckily I'm aware of it now, but before, so I think that's another added bonus to what we're already experiencing in life. And, then you realize that your problems are not as big as other people's problems. So I think that's an interesting thing that, in general, is just because I feel so helpless in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
that's the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I think I mean, I could say nothing's going on in my life because like it's kind of a routine now. When you have kids, it's kind of like it's a routine in a way. But at the same time, I'm very aware of everything going around with the world in general. And so that's, weighing on
Yeah.
me.
Very good point, Taj. I think that's important to highlight. And like you said, even though there may not be something specific going on in our personal lives, with everything that's going on in all the lives that are either lost or disheveled, in other parts of the world, it can still affect you many, thousands of miles away. So I appreciate you reminding the world of that position, because it's very true. As for me, Taj, I'm trying to think what's been going on. I started a diet. I've been struggling with it, but I'm motivated as ever with it. So, one day at a time. And like so many people out there, I gained a lot of weight during COVID, and just trying to get back to my normal routine. I've slowly been losing weight, and I've already started to feel better about myself. I'm hoping as this pandemic becomes more and more, a thing of the past, I should say, I'm hoping that we can all reclaim the life we had, and get back to our normal routines. I think it's important and healthy for us to do that. So I'm just slowly doing that for myself as well. So it's been good. It's been good. All right, Tosh. So on this episode of the Power of Love show, today's date is March 9th, again, 2022. We welcome back a special guest and friend of DDJF, the one and only Laura from Formentini. Laura is an author. She's a nonprofit photographer and a philanthropist. Through her work, Laura has encountered ordinary people who've accomplished extraordinary things after difficult life events. Laura's healing was greatly impacted by her belief that while the terrible times you suffer may feel like the end of life as you know it, these difficult times can actually become the catalyst for new growth. Her message for empaths and highly sensitive people is one of love and encouragement. As we rise from our own pain, we can take loving actions that lift others up in the process. 21 Olive Trees is a mother's walk through the grief of suicide, a hope and healing, marks Laura's debut as an author. She lives nomadically with her family. Without much further ado, please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Power of Love show, the one and only Laura Formentini. Laura,
Hello, thank you so much for having me back.
we are so happy to have you back. Um, I love what you do, what you stand for. Um, I think the concepts you live by and what you say is so true and important for people to understand and grasp. Oftentimes, it's difficult times that we all encounter, but for a lot of us, it can really just knock us off our feet and down. And I love that you try to utilize difficult times and as a catalyst for new beginning and new growth. So I first want to commend you for that, and living by that way of life. I think it's very, very important. Um, so Laura, for those who are new to our community, can I please ask you to share a bit about your son, Blaze?
Yes, so my son Blaze was what most people will call my soulmate. So we were soulmates in the sense that, we thought alike, we spoke alike, we almost even looked alike. And so it's just, we lived together on two different continents because I'm from Europe. And so we lived in America, we lived in Europe, we traveled a bunch, we just finished each other's sentences, and we just would understand each other completely. The one thing about Blaze and I that we both had in common was empathy, extreme empaths. And so, Taj, when you were talking about picking up the energies of what's going on, it's so typical of us empaths. It's like you can't help it. It's the way we are. We absorb the good and we absorb the bad. And so you can't be around negativity because you absorb that. And we can be around positivity, and then we're like, hey, super happy, and we accomplish a ton. But it's not just the war that is going on right now in the Ukraine. It's also the collective grief that COVID has left. We've all felt grief. When COVID came out, in 2020, I was already going through the grief of my son's suicide, and believe me, it was, I don't know how I continued, but to really summarize the way Blaze was an empath. He was very generous and sweet, and he had started acting in Hollywood, and he was also a model, and was almost 6'5", and he had a lot of prospects for his life. But unfortunately, he was in it for the craft and not for the fame or the money and all of that. And unfortunately, that really started his downfall. And he picked up all the energies that were not for him, and an empath, unfortunately. So then right after he started volunteering, he went abroad. He went to Sri Lanka and Cambodia and started teaching English to the monks. And he's like, hey, just a day or two after leaving LA, I'm already feeling a lot better. And then, that's his path. But unfortunately, it was too. And so, he kept saying, what is the point? That there's so much harshness in this world. And so I realized that he really wanted to work in the nonprofit field, just like me, because I'm a photographer. He was thinking about maybe doing documentary film, but the problem was he was way too empathic, and he left before understanding that his empathy was a gift. That the empathy heals. And so my message with this book is really, hey, you empaths and highly sensitive people, realize that you do have a gift, and then there is a spot for everybody in the world. And I don't think he had realized it. Sometimes when we are too sensitive, we tend to isolate ourselves and say, I can't deal with this, I can't deal with that. But there is a spot for you. There is a spot for you if you're an empath and highly sensitive. Because you're talking about 15% of the overall population is highly sensitive. So you're not alone. You're talking about maybe 1.5 billion people are like you. So it's not that you're alone. And that's unfortunately what Blaze was going through, thinking that he was alone.
We always talk about it on our show, that the devastating effects feeling alone can cause people, and that's one of our biggest goals here at DDJF. And that's, we have a Facebook group to just make sure people know that whatever they're going through, there's others that may be going through it with you, and you can connect with them and get through things together. I also want to thank you for sharing all of that. And I think you put it out in such a way that's very articulate and very heartfelt and very real. So I really appreciate that. Now, the last time we spoke, or I should say the last time you were on the show, it was June of last year, so June of 2021, and you were awaiting the release of your book, which is called, it's called 21 Olive Trees, A Mother's Walk Through the Grief of Suicide to Hope and Healing. And now, today, in March, your book is officially published. So first of all, a huge Huge, big congratulations. Secondly, I envy you because I've been wanting to write a book for 5 years and I still haven't been able to get to your stage, but one day at a time.
Yep.
And then third, how have you felt personally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually since releasing your book into the world for others to read? How have you felt?
Well, a lot of authors feel the same way. It's like giving birth again. But this specific book was seriously just like giving birth, because it's like I had given birth to Blaze one more time. And then it feels that it's beautiful because it's out in the world. It's not for myself anymore. It's a gift for the world. Because I started writing this book. I started writing the fables and the poems just a few weeks after he passed away. And it wasn't my original idea to publish a book. My idea was to just really heal myself through writing, because it's very cathartic. But then I met the right people, the right people and the right situations materialized. And these people were saying, hey, this should be a book because it could help other people, heal. So it's been great, because my message is really, grief is really a natural response to any sort of loss. And it doesn't have, whether it's death, it can be, a natural man-made calamity, but, it could be divorce, it could be a job loss. So this book is really it turned out to be, and in fact, it's doing really well. And, I've been asked to translate it into Italian and French and German. And, now it's going to India and it's going to South America. So I think that because of a lot of people have gone through this collective grief because of COVID. COVID was, if you think about it, actually, I was reading that according to the CDC, in 2019, 57% of Americans were grieving, okay, the loss of someone dear to them. That means every other person you encountered was grieving. And that was in 2019. In 2020, when COVID came out, the percentage of people grieving was a lot higher, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about, we've all been affected by this stuff. It's not just, the physical loss of someone. It's all the stuff and the routines that have been taken away from us, and then that's grief, that's loss. So I'm hoping that this book is really going to, sort of like a friend for someone who feeling alone and feeling lost or desperate, or because I know what it feels like. In losing a child is, they say, the most traumatic event that a person can go through. And I can attest to that. It's the beginning was incredibly, it was devastating. But then, so it's been a lot of emotions since it came out, but I'm receiving an amazing response, positive response. And there's nothing better.
Yeah, I can assume that you've received all that positive response, because I will always say this, that we need more people like you to tell your story and to write things out for people can feel some type of community, something out there that they can connect with.
Yes.
And the more people who write books and talk about their scenarios through whatever way they want to, will help and heal the world, which is a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
I have a question. This is a basic question, but it's an important question. If our listeners wanted to get a copy, what's the best way they could do that? Where can they go and get a copy? That's the first
The best
question.
way is definitely Amazon, the best way, but it's in a lot of bookstores, and it's
Okay.
also in a lot of libraries. So again, it came out just a couple months ago, but it's already at some major libraries in San Francisco, Seattle, New York. So libraries carry it, and then some bookstores. It's at Barnes and Noble. But I would say Amazon is probably the easiest way, and it's been amazing. It's almost overwhelming, the positive response that I've received, because once I was asked to translate it into different languages, it was wow.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
weren't
it,
expecting that.
it was a huge accomplishment, but not, it's the subject is not easy to discuss because a lot of people will say you're speaking of the unspeakable, and it's being the most vulnerable that you can be, and really expose yourself, and just be as authentic and open as you can over a subject that is really difficult to talk about.
Yeah,
But I know that Blaze would have wanted me to do this, and he would say, you know, "You're doing it, mom." And again, we were soulmates, so I feel like we're still sort of like working together. Like he's in a
beautiful,
different dimension in the spirit. I'm here with the boots on the ground, but
beautiful.
we're it's a beautiful way of, again, love does not die. The form does, but love stays, and so that's my it's love is at the core of everything. And the reason why I was able to continue is because I kept refocusing on my why. Why am I doing? There were times where I was thinking, I don't know if I can finish this book, because it was
Mm.
it was painful to reopen the wounds. But then I kept refocusing on the why. Why am I doing this? Number one, because Blaze would have wanted me to do it. And two, it's because I know that it can help a lot of people.
Sophia wants to know, is your book available in Europe?
My book is available at yes, in on amazon.co.uk.
Okay.
That's available in the UK. I know a friend who bought it, who lives in Sweden, and he was able. He did order it from Amazon.se, which is the Swedish affiliate.
Okay.
So it is. Yes, it
Okay,
is.
so let's do this. So check Amazon, everyone out there, and
Yeah,
then if you can't find it on Amazon for whatever reason, I will just say this, and I may be speaking out too far ahead of myself, but you could go to the website, and maybe there's a contact where Laura has another, or there's another method, but you
sure.
could go to www.lauraformentini.com. And for those who are listening, let me spell it for you. It's www.lauraformentini.com. So we have been talking with Laura Formentini about her book, 21 Olive Trees. And I will ask you one more question. What can readers expect once they get the book and from reading it?
Well, the book is um, it's really meant to be for anyone who's going through their grief and dark moments. Okay, so because I speak about um, my own experience where my son took his life. Okay, when he was 21 years old, and I was in Ethiopia, and when I received the news, I had to drop everything that I was doing and had to fly back to the States on something like a 35-hour long flight. Actually, it was 4 flights. So you're talking about reading the story of a woman who, was completely desperate and devastated in the beginning. But the story begins with the devastation, the uncontrollable pain, and then it ends. It kind of like it shows the arc of my transformation. So it begins in with the, I don't know if you're familiar with the Kubler-Ross model, the grief Kubler-Ross
Mm,
model. So basically, anybody who's going through grief goes through a series of 5 emotions. Okay, all of us. Like, it doesn't matter. It can be death. It can be any sort of major trauma, grief. So you go through a series of 5 emotions. You're talking about denial. You have anger, bargaining, sadness or depression, and then eventually you have acceptance. Okay, so it's 5 emotions. Okay, so those 5, and I went through all those 5. Now, because once you get to the acceptance, it doesn't mean that you're not going to revert back to maybe the previous one or the 2 previous ones. It can cycle back because it's everybody goes through this process differently. But basically, the book shows you the arc of my transformation to the acceptance portion. That doesn't mean that I did not experience any more sadness. I do occasionally. It's not something that the healing continues. But so that's really what the book shows. It shows my process of transformation, and even the healing, because I have gotten to the healing aspect, which goes beyond the acceptance. And the healing really, for me, happens when I put that loving to action, when I keep working with the nonprofits, when I'm sponsoring a bunch of kids, and I've been sponsoring like 50 kids through Plan USA, and I talk to all my friends in Kenya and the orphans I worked with, and so it helps me to keep everything in perspective and say, there's so much that your love that could have gone to blaze, that love, you can still put it towards other causes and towards other people who really need it. Because grief, what is grief really? Grief is love that has nowhere to go, if you think about it. So if you're able to put the love into action, that means, don't let that energy stagnate. Just, all that love that you have inside, all that grief, let it go, let it flow, let it go to where people need it, or animals need it, or where the planet needs it. And so that's my way of healing myself. And again, psychotherapy and bereavement counseling, that might help for some people, but there's research that shows that people who engage in kindness, in acts of kindness, those acts of kindness, they benefit their well-being, their mental health. So there was I think it was some research done by the Journal of Social Psychology that said that participants who engaged in something like 7 days of kindness activities had their level of satisfaction improve.
Wow.
And so if psychotherapy is not for you, it's not for me, for example, try to put that love into action. There's a lot of opportunities for volunteering, for tons of stuff that we can do in the world. And so that's my healing.
It's beautiful. Taj, I know the question too, I think. So go ahead, Taj.
Go ahead. You do know the question.
Then ask it. And can I put it on the screen?
Yeah, I saw it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's Taj's question there.
Yes.
Go ahead, Taj. Ask the question for Laura.
Yeah, because I did see on the image it did have an iPad and iPod or an iPhone. So is this available for audiobook and will it be available on Audible, as Lena asked?
Yes, it's the audiobook is out, and it's on Audible, and it's 21 Olive Trees, and it's narrated by Courtney Patterson. Nice. She's an amazing narrator. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's already out.
All right.
So cool. I knew that was Taj's. Taj doesn't read as many books. He likes to listen to the podcast and Audible books. So I know that's his question. So I know he's happy with that.
Yeah. Good for you.
Okay, so I have another question. How has your grief changed, or has it not changed since releasing your book? Has it intensified? Has it subsided? Has your grief changed in any way since the release of your book?
It's interesting because, again, it's just like giving birth again. And you're like, actually, it's a relief. And it was a relief, and it brought a lot of happiness, because I was saying, oh, finally, it's out there in the world. But I also felt like I had been running a marathon for a long time, because putting a book together takes a lot of effort. And then, especially when the subject is, it's difficult. So I was really excited. But again, it was like I had just finished a marathon, and then I was also exhausted. It was a mix of feelings. You can just say, I can't say, oh, just one emotion. It was multiple emotions. But, as time goes by, I realized that I did something really big because I know a lot of people who told me, wow, in your situation, many people would have not even gotten out of bed. But I've always been really proactive and very action oriented. And I'm like, it's not going to serve me to just sit down and or be in bed, and it's not going to happen. And so, yeah,
That's very
multiple
cool.
emotions.
As I said, and I agree with all those people. It's commendable what you've done, and that you've done it. And again, on behalf of my brother and the foundation, we thank you, because it's people like you who's going to make it an easier road for so many out there. Toria wants to know, since you achieved your goal to release your book, what are you now looking forward to? Is there any other goal for you, Laura?
Yeah, so I have two goals. I have another book that I finished, and it's on my experience working with an orphanage in Kenya, and where I collected the autobiographies of the kids. And so it was just really a very emotional project, but I think it's going to be really wonderful to publish this book where we really showcase how other kids live, especially very poor kids. You're talking about kids that who go from 6 years old to about 18, and their experiences were, living without parents, but especially living in very poor conditions. And so we'll be able to maybe compare, I don't know if it's the right term, but with, the kids of the same age who live in the so-called first world. And we can maybe I think it's a book that might be helpful to put things into perspective for a lot of kids. And the other goal is to plant my 21 olive trees. And so so I just spoke this morning with a wonderful lady who I just met on a Sri Lanka trip just a month ago. And she wants to create a meditation center, healing center on the island of Cyprus. And she wanted to plant some olive trees where people can come and meditate and heal themselves. And so that's something that sounds like it might happen, because again, when the right thing is meant to happen, the right people show up every time. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about the goal of planting 21 olive trees in your son Blaze's honor. I think that's a beautiful thing. Have you given any thought of the exact location of where you're going to do this, or?
Well, the olive tree is, grows in the Mediterranean basin, really. So you're talking, obviously it could be Italy, it could be Greece, it could be Spain, Cyprus, who knows? But so Cyprus is an idea. And then we have, I'm thinking maybe Greece, and it really depends on my partners, and then what, I know that the right spot will pop up, but so far I have Cyprus, and Cyprus is a very good option.
Okay, so, and then I wanted to read this comment because it's in our comments section. But Cruz says, "Thank you, everyone." Cruz says her cousin was the first to commit suicide. He always seemed happy. He left behind his wife and 3 small kids, and we are still grieving. He was never sad. Is this common? I don't know. I don't know, or I don't expect you to be able to answer, Laura, if you can or not. But I do want to ask: is there anything you would tell Cruz and her family, or anything that you've experienced being in a similar situation?
Well, I think that okay. So from what I understand, this was a man. One thing that I noticed is that it can be a lot more difficult and frustrating for men to express their emotions. More difficult than women. Us women, all we do is talk about feelings. You know that. And emotions, whereas guys are, especially when they come from certain backgrounds, it's much more difficult.
Yeah.
to express what they have inside. So, even if someone, looks happy, not necessarily they are happy, and so it
Yeah.
can be very difficult um,
Yeah.
to understand. But yeah, it really does depend on the person. We're all
Yeah.
different.
I would add. I would add. Just go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, typically, though, someone who is contemplating to do something to harm themselves, they'll show some signs that they're not
Mm,
necessarily always happy. There's always something, there's always a red flag. And, maybe not very evident, but there's always something off about their
mm.
behavior, isolation, or not necessarily they'll talk about it. Not necessarily they'll talk about, oh, I want to kill myself. But, you know,
Usually there's something. I will say this too.
yeah.
I think first of all, condolences to you, Cruz, and your family. It's someone like I don't know. I can't even imagine what you and your family are going through, or you went through, Laura. I don't even know where to start. So the one thing I can just say is that again, Laura, I appreciate you for writing a book and slowly figuring a way to live a positive life after such a devastating situation. Um, I'm going to ask another question if that's okay. Have you decided to do anything specifically using Blaze's name in terms of honoring him in that way, or has it always been just like 21 Olive Trees? Have you ever decided to do something using his name? If that makes sense.
You mean like a foundation or something like
So
that?
just a foundation, a book where it's more specific to him.
Well, I think about him every day, and so I know that there's so much that I can do with him and for him.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but
I
you
was
know,
just curious because, first of all, as I said when we started, I love his name, and I think it's such a
yeah,
cool name, beautiful name. And I was just wondering if, because for us, when we started the D.D. Jackson Foundation, we didn't know if we should use our mother's name or if we should talk about more the mission.
yes,
And we decided to go our mother's name route and do things like the show where we talk about the power of love. But I was
yeah.
curious to know for you, was there something you had a project in mind where it was kind of using his name? Because, like I said, I love his name, and I think that could be also a cool way to personalize the relationship.
Yeah, I've thought about a foundation. I've thought about lots of things, and again, the name Blaze. You can use it in so many different sentences, like blaze the trail.
I love it.
You can do,
I mean,
yeah,
I think I'm just saying. I think that would be super cool.
yeah,
Because his name
yeah.
is very unique and it's a beautiful name. So
Thank you. Yeah,
really,
and there's tons of ideas. They're still up in the air, but I know that for sure something is going to come out of it. And the healing sanctuary with the trees for sure. But I could potentially do something that is more global, and that,
hmm
um, but it'll come. And yeah, again, I think I know that the right situations always, uh, you know, show themselves at the right time. So
yeah. You
that,
you have time, and I'm just happy to hear that you're doing more things, writing more books,
yeah,
and you're moving forward with all of this, and it's just beautiful to hear. Because, as I said many times, the world needs it. And I remember when I lost my mother, I felt like there was nothing out there that spoke to me,
yeah,
that could relate to it. And I appreciate the fact that you are doing your part and sharing your story and sharing what you've went through and
yeah.
just to help so many others. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Um Taj, anything? Because we're gonna wrap up soon, but I want to give Laura obviously the final message, of course. But I want to make sure I get your question if you had any.
I have one question in general, just because, as TJ said, like when we lost our mom or when we lost our uncle, I still felt, guided by them. And to this day, I still do.
Yeah.
And I can sense with you that's probably the same scenario
Oh, yeah.
in that way. Is when you have that connection. Some people don't understand that, but because they don't, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means that that's just
Yeah.
in general. But it's a very interesting feeling in that way, and maybe that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why,
Yeah.
for me, I'm not. I shouldn't say as sad. It's just I don't show it as much, as because I still feel their presence with me at times, and I still feel that they're guiding me.
Sure.
And you've talked about like the right things will happen at the right times.
Yeah.
People say I'm one of the luckiest people because things fall into place for me, but I really feel that they're moving chess pieces for me, or they're moving this or that in that way, and I just listen, or I just go with what is presented with me at that time. So I was just listening to you, and a lot of that rang true, and how you were talking about your son and the connection you had, and the words you were using. So I was just assuming that, but in that way.
Yeah, I don't know if I might have told you last time I was on the show that, when I started writing the fables, okay, I had it was I had this urge almost every night to wake up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning. I just, without an alarm clock, nothing, just wake up and write. So it was really weird, but I don't know how to explain this. But what I would do is do my meditation, because I do meditation in the morning and in the evening. Do a little meditation, light a candle, and then let it flow. And then I will just write and write and write for 3, 4 hours straight. And then I will close my notebook. And then a lot of times I go back the following day and read what I had just written. I'm like, did I write this? It was so, like, I knew that it was there writing it with me. And it was so bizarre because I'm like, where did these ideas come from? And but yeah, the presence is very much felt still. And it's comforting. I mean, I do miss his physical presence, but I know he's there. Like, the spirit's there. And the spirit
Mm.
is really the love that is between us.
Mm.
It's it's lighting the way.
Yes, that's beautiful. And Clarissa says, I just lost my daughter, and being here is helping me. We lost her September 5th, 6 days before my birthday. It's hard every day. Her loss has been life-changing for me. Um, and there's so many out there that unfortunately have to deal with this and or live this life. And again, Laura, thank you for making it easier for Clarissa and many more out there. um, okay, Laura, it's that time where we are going to close with anything you want to share to our community. It could be your favorite TV show, it could be your favorite meal, your favorite place to travel. You've been to many places,
Mhm.
or it could be something about a message you want to give to our community. Anything you want, please inform our community starting now.
Wow. I think I always thinking about I'm always thinking about loving action, which is, for me, it's something that propels me forward always, no matter what I'm going through. I'm always thinking I can always rely on that love that I have inside. And the love, especially if I put it into action, it'll heal anything. And so there's a beautiful quote: love cannot remain by itself, it has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and the action is service. The world is filled with too many of us who are inclined to indicate our love with an announcement or declaration. I think that we all have love inside of us. Okay. Let's take that love and let's put it into action. And There's so much we can all do in the world, and we don't have to do anything big necessarily. We can start right now, right here, where we are, and that's my message. And love heals anything. That's the
Mm.
only healing agent in the world.
That's a beautiful message, Laura, and a very profound one for everyone who, if you love and you're missing someone, put it into some type of action. Laura wrote a wonderful book called 21 Olive Trees, A Mother's Walk Through the Grief of Suicide to Hope and Healing. Make sure to check it out on Amazon.com. If you're like Taj and you like to listen to books instead, you can go to audible.com. Laura, I want to thank you again on behalf of my brother and the foundation for being here, for sharing your story, for writing this book. I'm excited for the future book to come. I'm excited for everything you have going on in the future. And again, just thank you. Is there anything else either one of you want to say before I wrap this completely up?
Well, I was going to say thank you so much. That
Oh, you
was
are more than welcome,
amazing
Laura.
the show again.
You are more than welcome, Laura, and you're always welcome here. So any of your next projects, please come on and share it with our
Oh, I
community.
love to. Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you
Okay.
for being on.
Thank you. Thank
All right,
you.
everyone. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Please be safe. Love your loved ones. And like Laura said, put that love into action. Adios, everyone, and God bless you all.